What is up, friends, family? It has been a minute. So I tried to make a post about it this morning, and it was like the awkwardest thing ever, which reminded me that I am actually, believe it or not, a really awkward person. And doing these streams is actually a really cool way for me to kind of integrate and see what the normal humans are doing. That being said, I have friends, because even weirdos have friends, and we are going to get going this week, and we're going to try a few things because, you know, this is a format to be played with. Like, we're here to give feedback on your tracks. Sometimes we show you plugins we like. Sometimes, I think this week we might talk a little bit about EDM news. So without further ado, oh yay, my stream deck is working. Hello. Hey. We have a wonderful array of friends, including the always verbose and lovely Nathaniel Wyvern and our special guest, Sunny Skies. Sunny Skies, I know you've been on here before when I wasn't around, so maybe give a little intro just as much for me as for anyone else.
So I usually go by Sunny Skies whenever I am releasing music, but generally my name is actually Tristan Prophet, and I came to music just out of nowhere. I found some music that I really liked. I was like, hey, can I make this? Tried it, started bouncing between genres, discovered that I really liked melodic dubstep and house tunes, and started making them. Recently, I've been trying to do more rock stuff, which is really interesting stuff.
Wicked. Yeah, and you are actually first in the queue this week, so I think this will be a really good intro. Do you want to tell us in your own words what's up with this track that you submitted?
So I've never made anything in 3/4. I've really wanted to try and make like a house track in 3/4, but with the 1 2 3 4 rhythm that you always have in those tracks, I don't know if it's a thing. I've tried looking it up, I can't find out. So I was like, what else is in 3/4? And I found out that Lonely Day by System of a Down. Such a lonely day, and it's mine. It's a rock song in 3/4. Right. So I used that as a reference and built an entire phone call. Okay, goodbye.
Wow.
An entire track based off of that idea. And this is what came out. Used some synth sounds in the beginning to get my chords out, and then started throwing guitars, and it just went, it grew.
Wasn't that ringtone in 3/4?
Well, thank you for being on here with us. The ringtone in 3/4. Oh my goodness.
I feel like
so
we're
gonna have you up very. Are you already delirious, Natty? Usually it takes you a few hours to get there. All right, let's check out this track by Sunny Skies to start off our week. sorry about that. Computer glitching a little bit, but holding up okay. This is cool. But I kind of like, at this point, I wanted to like do something different instrumentally. Like I wanted to break up a little bit, maybe. I wanted to like maybe have a more minimal part, or just a little bit more dynamic, because it's so epic and it's like such a ballad and it's kind of like you're floating, right? But I think that after 3 minutes, it should, maybe sooner than that, and then it should come back to this, because I do really like this part. I just think that there needs to be a little bit more dynamic, you know what I mean, Natty?
Yeah, it's like if you're gonna go with this much shreddage, then maybe... if you're gonna go shredding that much...
What is this at the end here? Sorry.
It's I was trying to record some vocal. It's a blooper.
Well, scandalous. Scandalous. I like it though. I love little ending, Easter eggs. It's like the Marvel ending scene. Like you got to listen all the way to get it. So I like rewards like that.
Oh, that's Anyway, yeah. If you're gonna do something with that much guitar work in, that tonality, either ramp it up, go even crazier with your riffs, or modulate it more. I think I agree with ill-esha. You need to bring it back down if you're not going to do that, because you kind of play it straight the whole way through with your bendy shreddy bits. It's like it's sort of like, it makes it feel more repetitive than it probably is, just because you're not using the guitar techniques that are available to vary up the timbre.
Timber is like wood, Nathaniel. It's timbre.
That's timbre.
Oh,
it's actually timbre.
Timber is a really good thing to know. Like if you're chopping down a tree like we all are, and it's about to fall on your homie, timber can be a good way to tell somebody that that's about to happen. But I think the word you were looking for is timbre. Timbre.
Thank you, Alexa.
So yeah, any other thoughts?
We should give. I agree with some of the comments that maybe some work on beef, like adding beef to your drums. Right now they're a little bit floppy, and a lot of it, I think, is to the fact that you're need to do some more bussing and parallel processing of your drums to allow each element to have specific emphasis. Like the kick still needs a bit of sub in there, which you kind of eliminated in your request to clean everything up. But then you obviously want things like your snare to be, a specific transient element of it needs to be punchy, but not necessarily the rest of it. So it's like you need to get surgical and, just sit there and say, what is each element trying to do? Like hats, for example, you can actually trim a lot more from your hats here than you're doing, because they can just glide over the top. Don't need to be so...
Yeah, and that will take up a lot of space and kind of like create a constant timbre that you might want a bit of a rest from.
I did break that up with the hi-hats in the in-between, and I only have the at the drop. You think I could probably vary that up a little bit more?
Yeah, exactly. Just dynamics, because I mean, even classical music, right? Like great symphonies, they have dynamics. So it doesn't matter like what genre it is, it needs dynamics. And I think that you've got a great continuous vibe, but now we need to make people miss it. It's kind of like when somebody is just like too into you and they follow you around all the time, and you're like, I need a break, no matter how great you are. And then you take a break and you're like, oh, this is much better. You need to take time away from things you love. And it's the same with tracks. You need to have a part that makes people want to have the rest of it come back, I think. Yeah. All right. So next up we have Zine. Nathaniel, any comments from Zine?
I have learned that I'm not good at mixing while I'm hungry. I've learned that I'm not good at mixing while I'm hungry, so that's my excuse.
All right. Interesting introduction. Okay, another car commercial classic from Zine. I think that you've got solid ideas, and by ideas I mean like the thing that you sit down and work on. But I think that, like timbre-wise, this is going to be the new ear
The new
candy
word.
of the week. I have to fix my Stream Deck because every time they update it, it stops working. So I can't do the emoji until I click. Right? No, you know what? I want to do it. We're all going to wait. Here we go. Ear candy.
It's worth the wait.
Well, you need to do ear candy with your timbres. So, even if it's just like, look, use presets from synths. If you're just like getting started in sound design, go and use good presets and then reverse engineer them. That's the best way to learn. If you're like, I like this bell sound. What do I like about it? Ooh, this is like there's an FM filter on it. Maybe that has something to do with it. Let me move that knob. And eventually you'll figure out exactly how to make the sounds that you want to make. And I think now I've finally, after years, reached this point where I hear a sound and I'm like, I want to make my own version of that, and I can actually dial it up within a few minutes. But it just takes trying and experimenting, and reverse engineering is a great way to go. So I honestly think that if you just changed your sounds up to more sophisticated, evolving ones, you're already going to have like a better track, because you have like a nice starting idea. You just need to really expand and fill in the detail. Tristan, what do you think?
So, I think you should definitely eat before you mix. It helps a lot, a good burger or a sandwich. As simple as peanut butter on bread with brown sugar or marshmallow fluff is really good for the stomach. I noticed you used a lot of tension in your chords in the very beginning. It started off sounding really almost corny happy, but I heard the chords and you had like I don't recall what it's called, but in a chord when you have two notes sitting by one another and it builds nice tension in the middle of a chord. I thought that was good use of that. I heard some animation with some swelling in the chords, and the drop feels really full. I think finding a way of tying them in together would probably be prudent, though.
Yeah, Rabuz says, I feel like your writing is really good, and now you just got to spice it up with some industry standards on your genre, like pumping sidechain, the standard mixing techniques and stuff like that. Exactly. It's kind of just an all around keep texturizing, keep learning. Natty?
I mean, I think you're definitely continuing to improve Zine, and this one, yeah, I mean, Isha made car commercial jokes, but this one sounds less like a car commercial than the last few things. So you're getting further and further away from Kia territory. I obviously can.
Never
Submission
forget
link
that
is
one of
down,
the
it should-
samples on the Jam Pro. Never forget that one of those was made with the Kia synth from, I think it was it IV or something like, or invented. I always mix
I
them up
think
just
so.
because of
I
that
can't remember who
thing.
did that. That was, but yeah, that was funny. Okay. Yeah, one of his earlier ones, Reboot, is we did. I did a commercial over the top of. I can't remember which one it was. I did it. It was. Anyway, it's not Honda Civic music, which is good. I think that the problem is now you've gotten to a point where you've gotten a drop, as it were. You've got a chorusy bit, but you haven't worked out how to come back down. Your next place, if you're going to learn any new arrangement tricks, it's learning how to break down and give yourself an opportunity to come back for a second swing at the drop. Because, I mean, most songs, I mean, apart from some of these really modern TikTok songs, generally have at least 2, maybe 3 drops if you're lucky. But obviously you've got to have actual distinction between your first drop and your second drop. So, I mean, do you guys have any good recommendations for songs with nice breakdowns? I think maybe we should send Zine on some homework study trip.
Well, you know what? I actually have like the curriculum from the Ableton class that I taught, in the whole section where we learn about tension and release. And I have like, there's this one, there's this one track that has like an 8-minute breakdown. It's pretty over epic. So let me dig through that, and maybe we'll have a moment with breakdowns a little bit later. So, epic. Oh, we have
Or we'll have a
Baco
breakdown,
up next.
emotional
So
breakdown.
we'll have emotional breakdowns together. Don't worry, that's what we do here. That's our steez. What's up with Baco today, Natty?
It's a second retake of the vocals for this track. Rough mix, no sound effects or transitions, and probably quiet because Baka.
Because Baca? All right.
Because Bako, he's always not mastering quiet before he
Oh,
sings stuff.
yep.
Girl, you turn me on and I can't get turned off. Wanting you over, I want you all night long. All night long, I want you all night long. All night long, girl, I know. You ain't answering your calls, I've been calling all night long. Dodging my text, girl, what's going on? I thought we were the next, I guess I just thought wrong. I thought wrong. I know we weren't the same as we once was, but can't we go back to when we chose love? We chose us, we wanted us. I'm calling you up for the last time. Might have thought for a second I could have made you mine again. Made you mine again, no. I should've known it wouldn't have lasted long. We would be on and off like we always are again. On and off again, no one ever wins, oh. I want you back, girl, I cannot deny. Every night I spend wide awake just wishing you were mine. Wishing you were mine, wishing you would find that feeling, so just give me a try. You turn me on and I can't get turned off. Wanting you over, I want you all night long. All night long, I want you all night long. All night long, girl, I know. You ain't answering your calls, I've been calling all night long. Dodging my text, girl, what's going on? Thought we were the next, I guess I just thought wrong. I thought wrong, but I know we weren't the same as we once was. But can we go back to when we chose love? When we chose us, when we wanted us. Calling you up for the last time. Might have thought for a second I could have made you mine again. Girl, could you be mine again? Oh, I should've known it wouldn't have lasted long. We would be on and off like we always are again. On and off again, no one ever wins, no.
All right, Bako, is that you singing? Is that your voice? Your song? I want to know.
Yeah,
No,
I wanna
not
know
me,
some more
someone
information
else.
too.
Okay, so I got a lot of things to say about this track. I think it's a solid idea, and the vocal tone and the singer is really nice, but there's a few problems with the track as a whole and the vocal production, as some other people have said in the chat. So I'm going to make a few suggestions and stuff. First of all, I think the mix is a little bit kind of crazy, but I think you have a lot of other stuff to work on before even focusing on the mix, so I'll leave comments to other people. I think the first thing is the groove of the track. Right now you have this really cool percussion and you have the snare, and they're kind of not fitting in the same pocket with each other. Like, I love groove. I love getting people off the grid. I am the first person to say make it wonky, and like I'm a huge fan of the LA beat scene, like Flying Lotus, all that stuff, but it has to be done kind of more intentionally. And like, you can have a deep pocket, but you can only have like that one pocket. Everything has to fit into there. If you have one pocket and then one rigid and then one opposite pocket, and then you just have a little bit of a mess. So I think it's keeping me from really grooving with the track, because like the percussion is just clashing with the main groove somehow. So that would be the first thing. As for the vocals, timing, they're a little bit sort of off time, and even people who are really nailing it sometimes can be too on the beat. So a lot of the tips I give for people who work with rappers or with like super like hip hop and, pockety type of music, a lot of the time they just shift the vocalist forward a little bit late, because too often when people record, they can be a little bit nervous, or maybe they're just learning, and so they sit too far on top of the beat. If you ever listen to really good rappers, you'll hear them like kind of seem like they almost fall out of the groove because they're in so deep, and then they just say another word and they're back in there, and that's a skilled pocket. So I think vocally you have to also really like be picky about timing your vocals, and like every professional song has had this, like, some people use vocal line, I just do it manually. Obviously I try to hit the timing as good as I can, and usually when I comp takes together, I want them to be as natural as possible, but you still got to move the odd word around, or sometimes you got to shift the whole thing forward. So I think the timing, and also the way you have reverb on it, is not emphasizing the best parts of the tone. Okay, you have a really mid-range sort of male vocal, and you've got like this plate reverb, and you have these other reverbs that are resonating in mid-range frequencies. So you have a very mid-heavy resonant, and that's why you were kind of saying in the chat, Baco, like it still sounds dry even though I have reverb on it, because you're kind of layering reverb on in the space that the vocal is already sitting. So what you're getting is a thicker, muddier vocal, and you're not really getting any of the nice like uplifting that the reverb could create. So I would, first of all, go in and hard EQ that reverb, like cut a lot of the lows off, and if not, try using a different reverb, maybe a plate that's like sharper and more high end, because the vocal's so mid range and you don't really need to warm that up. And then I would also suggest not EQing the vocal. I think just really getting to know that sweet spot. If you get to know the voice, you won't have to do much. Like with my own voice, I can just dial up my Avalon, and I don't even have to listen to turn the EQs and the onboard compressor to the right place. So you have to get to this point with this vocal, like find that sweet spots, EQ it, really check your vex. All right, today I'm the monologuer. I'm going to hand it over to Tristan.
All right. I figured you already mentioned the percussion sounded a little strange. Not in the sense that they're bad percussion, but they clashed a lot with the actual mix itself. They almost sound swingy while a kick and snare are on 1 and 3. Do you guys at all think that introducing swing to a track like this would even work?
Well, yes, but I think it all has to be the same swing. That was my point, is like it feels like there's different swings going on.
All right, all right. And the snare also sounded a little funny. I don't know if it's the genre and I'm just not used to it, but I was thinking a 1, 2, 3, 4 kick pattern might be a little better in places. And in the drop, a clap and a snare mixed together, maybe reversing the clap into the snare might work as well.
That's a good thought.
I'm kind of speaking theoretically here. I'm not actually sure if that's a good idea.
What do you think, Natty?
I mean, I think I'm going to roast the piano. I'm very sorry, Bacco, for doing
Hey,
so. But
go for it.
I think your
Roast
piano
him.
sound is wrong. It's not a bad sound, but it doesn't fit with what you're trying to do with this track. You're trying to use a very sort of a staticky, stabby piano, and instead of using what sounds like a bar piano from like 1880s, I think you should use a more compressed piano sound, or something closer to an Korg M1 artificial piano sound that then has a delay or a reverb to then wash it out into the space. So you get that initial transient hit of dun, 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 and then it just sort of echoes out into the space. I think that would work better for what you're trying to do here. Because right now it's sort of it's a very mellow piano sound you've got here. But when everything else is so busy, the mellowness is actually kind of making it harder for you to dance around it in your mix. Because, arranging and mixing, they're all intermeshed, and, get out of your own way a little bit, I think, is the best thing.
That's a good way to put it, I think. Getting out of your own way. Who's up next? Oh, we have Imagine. It's been a while since we've heard your music, and I realized, I was like trying to remember, like, who was it that won the sample with the Kia? I think it was Imagine. No.
I think it might have been. I've forgotten at this point.
Well, Imagine,
no.
it's good to have you back. And what's up with this track?
Nothing
Nothing?
is up.
Nothing.
Nothing.
It's just for
Nothing.
fun. just for funsies. Shout outs to Audius. Yeah, we have some big music news to talk about in a little while, and one of them involves Audius, but shout outs as always to the nice quality. All right, this is a track by Imagine, and it's called Flight 115 Demo Track, question mark.
No matter where you go, I'll follow you. No matter what you've done, I'm guilty too. And if you stay right where you are, then I am gonna wait. I wanna let you light up my way. I wanna let you light up my way. I wanna let you light up my way. I just act like don't know where to go. I won't let it bring me down. Getting drunk without you ain't no fun. Wonder where you are right now. No matter where you go, I'll follow you. No matter what you've done, I'm guilty too. And if you stay right where you are, then I am gonna wait. I wanna let you light up my way. I wanna let you light up my way.
Oh man, Imagine. I always love your stuff. Audius.
Autoplay.
Autoplay, damn you, autoplay. Beautiful work. There's a few mixed things that could be tamed. Like, as some people said, there were a few piercing moments, and that could use compression, or perhaps the other thing we say all the time at ILBC Bingo, dynamic EQ. That could
Ooh,
help
yes.
because that will tame the really resonant notes. But super solid job. I really love your arrangement. I love your melody. Like, everything that you make makes people want to listen to it, right? And makes you hang on to that melody. So great job on the catchy melodies. Tristan, what do you think?
So the pluck, definitely. I was going to comment on that. I was thinking a lot of people are mentioning compression. The first thing that came to mind was actually attack. I think maybe changing the attack on that pluck would help a lot with how kind of sharp and in your ear it is. I almost want to say reverb might also help with that. I am not entirely sure if that would start muddying up the mix, though. I think the Rhodes are a really nice touch. The bass is on point, in my opinion. The slides on it, really good. You've got a really good groove there. And for the guy who did the last track, I'd say this is the kind of reverb you want to put on your vocals. How it accents the vocal. This is just a good example, in my opinion.
Cool. Natty?
I mean, I think Corvu in the comments here is right about the bass. Adding a little bit more saturation to it would actually be nice for what you're trying to do. But I also kind of just want a section of the track that just sits and grooves on that bass line with a little bit of, automation on it, kind of thing, and just the beat. Because I mean, obviously it's a very poppy track, so maybe don't go on for too long or whatever. But it'd be nice just to have a breakdown where it's just the groove and then the focus on the bass, and sort of, I think it'd be really satisfying because right now the things that get the focus are the vocals, obviously, and that pluck sound. I mean, that's very, very prominent. But it kind of all takes away from the fact that the bass is a nice melody and very catchy groove, but you never really give it a chance to breathe. So I mean, I think in terms of arrangement, that would be where I'd go look next. Is just find somewhere where you can just tunnel vision into that one element, and then bring everything else back in gradually.
Good advice.
Do you think adding a little bit more, I want to say, poink to the beginning of the car, like it's or the guitar, something you hear a lot in actually funk, would help a lot with that bass guitar sound? Like
I like
Point?
I like these questions you're posing.
it's like it's got a twinge at the beginning of it. You hear it a lot in funk.
Yeah,
It's like
that-
a boink,
like the little slap
boink,
bass.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Something like
Yeah.
that. I think that might help a lot. It would increase the groove tenfold.
Yeah, I mean maybe a little bit of that, or maybe even just the percussive parts of it. But yeah, it's super. I think you have a great groove here. You just got to tame some of the elements. Next up, we have Alta Noah. I don't know what this. Oh, sorry, my Discord is not copying. Is there a comment on that one?
Mixing and diff. The melody is too repetitive.
All right.
Which way do you think we should go?
boy. This track is really intense, and I gotta like just for a personal taste moment. I love the ambient parts and the melodic ideas you have, but the hardstyle beat and the bass make me really anxious, and that's just my own style. But I know that there are people who love this. I've been to Rotterdam, and I definitely think people would go off to this. But I also think that with this genre like this, the bass and the kick have to be like top notch because they're pounding in your face. So I would really kind of work on the drums to bass balance. I think there's some resonant frequencies, there's some overlapping things. And I would consider doing an ambient mix for us old people, because I would actually love to listen to that without the hard style in it. Again, just personal, but I think that your stuff is so melodical and musical that there is like another audience for it separate from that stuff. So just a personal thing, but I would kind of massage the kick and the bass a little bit and notch that EQ out, and then I would also consider a chill version. Natty, I know I'm old. How about a young person's point of view?
I might not even be the youngest person here.
Actually,
Tristan might
that
be
would
younger.
probably be me.
Yeah, but I mean, anyway, I guess as the middle-aged person here, you're rave
Okay.
mum.
Jesus.
I'm the weird uncle. I'm the weird uncle.
Oh boy.
Tristan's
Oh, boy.
Tristan's the server child now.
Oh boy.
The skill you guys have is definitely very evident when you guys talk about your music, and then I've just got a bunch of fluff to say about a song.
Nah, your insights have been good. I wouldn't worry about it. But I mean, anyway, but we don't say old in here. We say veteran.
Veteran.
Love it.
Yes.
I think one easy way to start just changing your melodies up is I think they're too repetitive. Is just start moving things up an octave. Go do 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 do, and then just go up an octave. So it's do 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 do, and then come back down or go back even higher if you want to increase the tension. Just start stacking voices of the same thing. I mean, Bach became obsessed with this idea in writing fugues, or fugues or whatever. I don't know how to pronounce it. It's Italian.
I think so.
Fugues. But I mean, he'd play the melody one time on the piano, then he'd play it again with someone on their fiddle or their cello or whatever. Then he'd get them to play it together, and then he'd get another instrument involved, and then all three of them, and so on and so forth. Just the same melody in lots of different instrumental combinations, played with different techniques, all the way through the track. And that would be how he would build these fugues. Because it was about exploring all the mutations and possibilities of that one singular idea. And obviously sometimes he'd have to change up the octave of it so it would be compatible with another instrument, so that would add a new dynamic. And sometimes he would have to change the timing a little bit, because let's say you have something played really fast as a motif. That's not always possible on some instruments. So then he had to start considering, well, okay, how does this other instrument, how is it possible to play this as close to that, but obviously not the same? So you can keep the same melody and get away with it, even with a track like this. But you have to start making those sort of variations that are both obvious and yet really simple to actually keep everything going.
True. What do you think, Tristan?
So, I'm trying to find it. There's when you mentioned the octave up thing, I was thinking you had a glass bell almost by the sound of it. In the near intro part, I was thinking that layering that melody with that instead of having the glass bell completely overtake the melodic elements of the song might get you the effect that she was talking about. As for general feedback, I'm not someone you want to ask for hard style, but what I can say is the bass feels very stereo. I don't know if that's a problem, but it feels everywhere. It's kind of hard to follow the bass line. The hard style bass hits seem to be hitting with the bass as well, but the hard style hits aren't changing in pitch. They're the exact same, while the bass line just gets buried under there. The female vocal you have in there, it sounds very dry, and it almost sounds like you're sitting there listening to music and someone's just sitting there trying to talk into your ear. It if that's the effect you're going for, I suggest continue on because you're doing a great job. But you might want to change that up a little bit. I almost want to hear some kind of male vocal singing in like a foreign language almost. The other big thing I can say is a lot of elements just seem to drown out the other parts whenever they come in.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think with hard style stuff, that's the problem is like you really don't have a lot of space because like that super fast like kick and drums and like distorted bass, it just takes up the whole track. So it's like all those beautiful ambient elements when you add that to it, it's just like so much, you know? Maybe if you have to have those parts, sorry, I'm being such a jerk. It's just my preference. But if you must have those parts, make them more minimal and take out a lot of the ambient stuff and just like focus on that driving bass and kick, right? And like have it just be like a clean drop. So that's what I would do. All right, we're gonna keep moving. Sorry, we've been all very monologue-y today. You know, it's good to be back. I've missed everybody. It's been a crazy week. Can we talk about a couple other things? The finals. So there's this really unfortunate thing going on right now where Twitch has zapped all of my videos from May to October, which includes the finals, which was like the whole year's work towards. And we had a great video up, and I was about to cut it up. So if for some reason you tried to watch the finals and you're like, where did they go? I'm really, really praying that Twitch can fix this for me because it's like a server got zapped or something. I don't know, but really bummed because it was an excellent show. If you didn't get to watch, we had Beat Matas doing finger drumming from France. We had a beatboxer from Spain. We had Wicket the Instigator from the US. We had New Disturbia from Northern Spain. We had a lot of really talented artists. Matt Black played, and we had a great competition, and the winner was Ryan Reset of Toronto, Canada, and he's going to receive a bunch of goodies from Erica Synths, who was sponsoring us, including a Zen delay and 2 synths. I have to confess, they're like a bunch of letters and numbers, and I've looked at them and they're rad, but I can't remember what they are right now, so I'll circle back on that. But some amazing stuff from Erica Synths. He won a machine from Native Instruments, and he won a signed launch pad from Matt Black. And if I could show you Ryan Reset's routine, which I can't because of the video being down, you would see that he uses like a wall of launch pads to do light shows. So I think getting this signed one from Matt Black will just
I think there's a little
add
clip
to his
of it
collection.
on Instagram.
Well, hopefully we get the whole thing back. I'm going to just, because it was obviously a weird glitch and it was there, so maybe they have some backup or something. But anyways, somebody asked a question earlier and I forgot to answer it, but they were asking about studio snacks, savory or sweet. So I thought it would be fun for us to talk about what we eat. So I'm weird. I kind of just graze. I don't eat a lot of like full-on meals. Sometimes I just pick at the fridge. So my studio snack today is a pan of roasted parsnip soup that I made this morning because I realized that I had chicken stock and parsnips and a couple other things. And I was like, it's kind of soup weather. It's warmed up a little bit, but it's definitely soup weather here. So I'm kind of boring, and I mostly just eat like things that I make out of things that are left in the fridge, which is, but it's good. It's really good soup. I just made it, and I'm totally going to eat it because I'm not waiting for like 3 more hours to eat the soup. Natty, what do you snack on?
Mostly
You're
junk
muted.
food. To be honest.
It's not me.
Yeah, I'm not muted. I
Junk
swear.
food? What kind of junk food? What
Right
kind,
now,
you're fine. What kind of junk food?
Caramel coffee matchmakers, which I saw in the supermarket today. They sounded interesting. They're brand new flavor, and they taste like caramel and coffee and chocolate. It's like 3 of my favorite things, all wrapped up into one little chocolate thing.
That actually sounds really good.
They are really good. And they're all mine.
Sorry. And what about you, Tristan? What do you eat?
So don't follow what I'm doing. You know, don't do as I say, not as I do. I usually eat Takis whenever I'm working, and if you don't
I
know,
love them.
Takis are covered in this red dust.
Yes.
So you're torn between holding one hand for Takis and doing everything on one hand, trying to lick the stuff off your fingers so you can continue touching your keyboard without getting Taki residue everywhere. Or as I do, I use a pair of chopsticks and I pull them out of a Tupperware container.
That is
As of right now, it's literally a bag of cheeses.
That is brilliant. Takis with chopsticks. Because
Yeah, I almost always eat them with chopsticks.
oh, because yeah, if you had like synths and MIDI controllers, everything would just be like an orange mess. That's really smart. Very, very smart. You must be a veteran taki eater. And I forgot I drink a lot of LaCroix. Don't laugh. It's because they don't have it in Spain. So when I'm in Spain, I don't drink it at all. They only have like plain water. So then I get home and I buy like 4 cases of it. And I'm like dragging it through, being like, all right, this is my studio supply. So I know it's just flavored sparkling water, but I don't drink a lot of juice. So it's like as exciting as it gets for me with beverages. It's coffee, tea, and LaCroix. And if I'm feeling dangerous, maybe a White Claw. So, all right, let's get back to the queue. Next up, we have Rebus. Sorry, I don't know. What's the word on this
It's
track?
just a vibe check.
Just a vibe check.
Vibe check.
We love doing vibe checks here, and you have a good vibe just because you're here
Immediate
with us.
concern.
We love vibes.
I could lose myself in what I need. Upside down in my dreams. Like someone's holding on to the air that I breathe.
Oh, that was so good. I did not want that to end right now. No, no. Why are you ending? That was great melody, great vibes. So great. The flames are still on. Whoops. And I really love your melodic arc. I do think that maybe like those synth tones on the drop could be like filtered just a little bit or envelope because they're a little bit flat. Like they're good sounds, but I just want them to kind of shape a little bit in and out a bit more, if that makes sense. So that could just be something super tiny and subtle, but I think just to give it a little bit more dimension, that's what I would do. But I really I think everybody here really enjoyed the vibe of that, and we were all like, why is it stopping now? Tristan, what'd you think?
Ping pong delay in the vocals was really good. Honestly, I was enjoying the song too much to actually be super critical about it, and I'd have to give it a second listen through just to figure out what I need to be commenting on otherwise.
Should be good now.
Do, do, do,
Good now.
do,
Sorry,
do, do, do,
you were
do,
muted at
do,
the
do,
beginning,
do,
but yes, Natty.
do, 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 do,
So,
do. I mean, honestly, you know that feeling that we all had at the very end? Use that to inform your breakdown. Seriously, stop it there, do a big white noise downlifter, and go into your breakdown that way. It'll keep everyone on the edge of their seats, begging for it to come back, and then you do something even more insane for your second drop. I think that's the key here to progressing this track.
yeah, and
What I
So,
actually had in
you know-
mind was more along the lines of an impact. Do you think that might be better there? Like a low impact, like a...
oh yeah, even like
Well,
with a
maybe
pause,
that- you
just
know,
to
that-
give it that dynamic.
And then
But either way, you know,
maybe
use that moment where you break.
maybe use like some cutoff or like some EQing and had like a really thin kind of pat or like a saw chord that went and it built up. So you had that big pause. That's just kind of what I was imagining as I was sitting here.
Yeah, no, I totally agreed. Anyone else? Anything else?
I mean,
Yeah.
otherwise the production was solid. I enjoyed it.
Yeah,
Good
no, I
job.
think everybody said this slaps. It does definitely slap, I would say. So next up, we have another regular, Nathan Vandenberg. Big ups, Nathan. Is there any comments with this track today?
They've rebranded as Nathan Van Denberg. Yeah, it was good. Yeah. And their comment was,
What?
"Whip." And the second part, "I need more synth."
All right.
wait, that's
Okay
what they
then,
put as
Nathan.
their artist
Wait.
name in the
Oh,
form.
link doesn't work. Link fail. Link fail.
Oh no!
Wah,
Nathan,
wah.
what you done?
You gotta check those private links, my friend. All right, can we move? Who's next?
I can't believe you've done
We
this.
got Rusky next.
Okay, cool, Rusky.
While Nathan fixes his link,
All
DM
right.
me, Nathan, with your knee link.
Okay, cool. So we're gonna move to Rusky, and Rusky I know has been working on it this
Rusky.
week. Is there anything specific that they're looking for feedback?
I'm trying to convey an introduction to a world I want to tell. I don't know yet where to take the chorus. I also feel that the composition style is a bit too close to cheesy, especially with some of the sound design. Any help, advice to blend this together more coherently would be appreciated.
Oh, Rusky, the link doesn't work either. Wah,
No,
2 links in
why?
a row.
No.
2 bogus SoundCloud links in a row. You
All right,
gotta
Nathan's got
check
his
it
in.
before you send it out.
Oh, stop it, Nathan! Stop commenting!
All right, we're gonna go
You're
back to
making your own
Nathan.
link
So we
go
got
up.
Nathan and Rusky. Oh my God.
No.
Okay, so where's the new link?
Just a second. Nathan ruined
don't
it.
see a
He
new
started
link.
chatting on top of his chat. There we go.
Nathan.
If you're gonna send me a
you-
link,
you
don't
consider
put
it
spam after it.
hooligan. All right. I think we're in
Dusky,
business.
give me your link too.
Nice stuff all around. Yeah, I really, really like what you did with the polyrhythm, as Rabuz mentioned. Like, it kind of makes you think that it's changing more than it is. And, you know, you don't have a lot of things going on, but you keep a lot of interest, and that takes skill. I'm getting to appreciate these genres more and more the more time I spend in Europe, because I start to just understand the context, and I see people moving to it, and it's just a very different vibe. And, you know, so I can really appreciate that, like, this is like the simplicity but the complexity at the same time. And I think that, with this genre, it's like your elements have to be really clean, really good, and you can't have too much of them, but you have to just keep people going and keep them on your tip for the whole time. So that is, oh God, come to ADE. I wish I was at ADE to, every year this time, I get memories on Facebook from the time I played at ADE, and I'm always like, oh, I want to be there. I hope you're all having a good time there. Tristan, what'd you think of this track?
So it seems I'm not the only one who thought of Dead Mouse whenever I heard this song. Especially, I think what set it off was that offbeat, or that bass. I was like, down, 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 off with the rest of the track. It doesn't sound like any of the bars repeat. You've got really good automation on all the sounds. None of the parts sound the exact same. They progress really well despite what probably is behind the scenes, just really subtle knob tweaks throughout the entire song. Also, there was a really interesting sound that sounded like a trumpet going. I thought it was interesting.
Nice. Natty?
I mean, it's still going in my head, so that's a really good sign. Doon, 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 boom, ba-da-bum, 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 ba-da-bum. That's kind of what it's like, isn't it? I think that the only thing for me that's kind of missing from this one is that you don't really have a proper climax to it. And I think, again, you can keep it simple. Do what you've been doing already. Just maybe for the last portion, the really big bit, just ramp up your saturation on everything. And have it so it just gets really crunchy, and then it comes back down, and that's your outro, is just that fade out of decay time for everything. So it's not like you're being, crazy or anything. Don't change your composition, just change how you process sounds a little bit more dramatically for the final run. And then it'll really hit home, I think, because you're very close. But it's just not quite hitting the peak, I think.
Super interesting ideas. Great job, Nathan, and wish we were at 88 with you. Next up, thanks for the donation. We have crypto hashes, a Q jumper. Any comments, any specific stuff that we're looking for today, Natty?
Any way to improve it melodically? I know it's missing some sub bass.
All right, let's check it out.
Missing your sub bass? Oh no. Where are you gonna store all your other bass?
the case of the missing bass. Call 808-3033 if you have more information on where this bass is gone. I think this is a good vibe. There's a lot of resonance in your synths. So much. They were kind of like slapping me with the low mids. And I think that is causing your bass to disappear because there's a lot of really stereo elements. And I think they're kind of like phasing in and out with each other. And there's a lot of like reverb and then that ocean sound, which is great, but it needs to be like brought back a little bit because it's a little bit too much and it's causing a lot of problems, which is there's no way your bass has a chance of poking through because you have a lot of resonance problems elsewhere. So I would just first look at just cleaning up your EQs a little bit and pulling back the Foley. What do you think, Tristan?
So this is something I've kind of actually been looking into myself. Is there a kind of side chain that you can do? So what I'm trying to say here is if you panned the ocean sounds out to the side with, say, ozone imager or something like that, just made the sound really wide, toned down the volume, can you have sidechain only cut off the volume in the space of the mix that the bass is taking up?
Yeah, I mean, you can play with mid-side EQ. Have you ever used that?
No, that's why I'm asking. I didn't know if it
dynamic
was a
EQ.
thing.
Yeah, so there's a couple of different things that you can use to control specific bands from triggers and also specific parts of the stereo space. So for overall frequency, it would be dynamic EQ, where you're basically sidechained to a particular frequency band and it pulls that band down when, let's say, the bass comes in. So yeah, you're right. You could have the whole like low mids kind of just pull down in that sound when the bass comes in, and that would be a really good candidate. But another thing you can do is use mid-side EQ, which allows you to EQ the stereo space. So you could, instead of using ozone imager, you could actually use a mid-side EQ and bump up the sides, the left and right, and pull down the mids, which is where the bass should be sitting. The sub should be sitting in the middle. So that's another way of making space, is doing it in, 3D space. So just a couple different types of EQ that you can try. But yeah, if that answers your question.
Yeah, that's definitely what I was getting at. Right now, as it stands, the waves almost sound like the intro to any of those nowadays or rock tracks that you can find on the YouTube, on YouTube,
On the YouTube.
where they start off with like a car or a soundscape, and you just hear the clink of keys, like you're listening, and suddenly you hear ambient sounds. You're like, wait, what? Oh, there's a music video. That's why. That's what it sounds like right now. The drums also feel really, really quiet, I want to say. Something I've seen in this style of track is actually cinematic drums or drums, kicks, and percussions with a lot more reverb on them. I don't know if that would work in this context, but maybe it's an idea that you might be able to try out, and I think that might bring a little bit more to your track.
Good idea. Solid. Natty?
Even just a really crunchy clap snare hybrid sound would be quite suited to this track, I think. So it's like boom, but not so like bit crushed. It just has to be crunchy on the top in the transient. And I've seen some interesting comments here. Did you compose this underwater? Was it good? It does sound, I mean, I guess that would explain where the sub bass would disappear to, because audio does sound different underwater.
Oh, no, but you would really feel it, It would be like vibrating the entire, like, think about water around you. And yeah, that would be so cool, though, to have like an underwater club or something. There probably is one in Dubai.
There's actually a band.
We're not rich enough for that club.
No.
There's actually a band that plays and sings underwater, like literally. They have little breathing tubes, and they play instruments underwater. They sing, and it's really strange. It's got a really interesting sound to it.
Whoa. What band is this?
I'm looking it up right now. I'm gonna see.
That's crazy.
I found the video.
Let's see.
We're probably we probably can't play it on stream without getting copyright stuff.
Yeah, probably.
No, I don't
just
think so.
Well, I love.
How do I pull up Twitch chat when I have the thing like this?
I love the water. I love the water stuff, but yeah, you just have to pull that back a bit so it's not so
Crypto
heavy-handed.
Hashes, that's dark.
Oh,
Isha, you just highlighted a very dark comment.
I know, but I think it was a very typical
no.
emo musician comment. And you know what? Like, that is a real thing. People feel like underwater, and I think that if that's an emotional place for you to write from, you need to emphasize it. You just need to frequency wise like pull back that resonance, because that water alone is giving you a lot of low mid frequencies that maybe you can EQ out. So then maybe like pulling back all your synths. Okay, by the way, I found the breakdown class, and I've got like links to some of these. One of them, it's actually an Eric Pride's track, but it's a Fortet remix. I guess I can't play these on the stream, but I just want to tell you about it. So if you want to like look up an epic breakdown, it's called Opus, and the breakdown goes from 2 minutes and 12 seconds to 7 minutes and 43 seconds. So it's like longer than some people's tracks. And I warn you that the drop for me is like a little disappointing, but the breakdown is pretty crazy how high the tension goes. So yeah, shouts out to Fortet remixing Eric Pride's for like the longest breakdown ever. So next up we have Rusky finally with a working link. Very good. And so Rusky, what did he say? I forget. Sorry, I have a squirrel.
Trying to convey an introduction to a world I want to tell. I don't know yet where to take the chorus. I also feel that the composition style is a bit too close to cheesy, especially with some of the sound design. Any help or advice to blend this together more coherently would be appreciated.
Okay, I love this like kind of dulcet Scottish vibe. When are you going to do your audiobook, Natty? Your audiobook reading stream? Or manual? Were you going to read the manuals?
Yeah, I know. That was still something. It's been on the bucket list for a while.
Okay.
I even have a copy of the Ableton manual somewhere.
Oh, I'm tuning in for the manual reading. All right, let's go to Rusky Slav's world. Wow, Rusky. Oh man, I really want to hear the rest of that story. Like my only complaint about that is, bro, where's the drop? It doesn't need a drop, you know? It would be a great ambient piece if you want it to, but it's very epic, and I like that Blade Runner synth that you're building up towards, and it's beautiful as it is, and you could extend it and make some really cool ambient music. I've really been getting more into ambient music. I don't know if that's just like a symptom of getting old, but I'm really appreciating just lovely atmospheres that don't necessarily kick in. Also, I don't really go out that much anymore, so it's like I like the feeling of just floating, and that's what you've given me, just floating in my own comfort zone. You know, I'm like back in my studio. It's a cold day. I'm comforted by all of this, and it's really nice. Tristan, you said Minecraft in a nutshell.
Yeah, this is 100% something I would play. Like, I'd turn off the Minecraft music and I'd play this in the background. I think someone else mentioned that this last week. Minecraft has a lot of music that doesn't really resolve itself, so you can listen to it for hours on end, and that sounds like a really good place where this track might shine, which also means if you're looking for directions to go, I think you mentioned something about the chorus or how you want to structure it. I honestly think that looking at, what's his name, C147 or whatever it is, the Minecraft music guy.
C418.
C418, there we go. I think looking at
Yeah,
his
there you
music might actually help you a lot and give you some ideas if you haven't already.
Cool. Natty, any thoughts?
I mean, I think that the difficult thing with writing intros like this is obviously it's constantly increasing in tension. And I can never work out when I'm writing stuff like this, where do I stop? You know, how big do you want it to get? I mean, with some bands I've noticed they'll just get to the point where it's a literal wall of sound. And then only once they've reached that maximum saturation point, then do they come down. But then again, as well, I mean, not everyone has the patience to listen to an intro to a track like that that's 5 minutes of intro before you get to the actual rest of whatever you're trying to say. You know, it's like you say, "Oh, is it getting? Oh, am I just getting old?" If you want to listen to ambient, I mean, I like ambient, and I find a fair amount of it very interesting. But it does require me to be in a specific mindset to enjoy it, and to actually listen to it casually. You know. So maybe it's not that you're getting old; it's just that you're finding you need more of those moments in your life where things just slow down a little bit.
Whoa, we're getting deep here. I don't know how comfortable I am with this, but okay, all right.
But I mean, maybe you just need that sort of pacing. But also, then that comes to songwriting too. Like, what audience you're aiming it at.
Yeah.
If you're aiming it at the cinematic crowd, then you're going to have to start doing things like introducing drums and percussion around where you've stopped here. Like, that's the point where you start introducing momentum. You have to literally give driving force to the track, because otherwise people will just start tuning out from there. But if you want to make it a full-on ambient piece, then you can go either, you know, you can get away with going longer, but obviously that's a, you know, decide your battle, which one you want to take on. The dedicated ambient listener who wants everything in analog, or the person who just wants to watch Interstellar 3 times over.
Oh, I know lots of people who would watch Interstellar multiple times over. I mean, myself
Oh,
included.
no time for caution. I found this really cool melodic dubstep remix of it that hits almost as hard as the original. It's really good.
Nice. You can post the link in the chat. We're going to move on to
Yellow.
Gatsky next. All right, Gatsky. What is up with Gatsky?
Super rough whip, but I'm really struggling with the mix on this. I normally go for a really bright, punchy mix, but I figured I'd try a few things differently. I think the sub is too loud, but any advice on the mix would be super helpful.
Well, first of all, just looking at it, it looks like a sausage, so I think that it might be over limited. But I'll give you keeping that in mind. Let's check it out. This is tight. I mean, you know, every once in a while I go off on a rant about being old and listening to ambient music, and then somebody slaps me around with a track like that, and it reminds me that underneath I'm still like a little bass kid. You know, I still make that face when something gets to me, and you made me make that face. So well done, my friend. You made me want to like go out to a party. You know, you overcame my cranky ambient oldness in like 1 second. So yeah, really really good composition. And mix wise, like honestly, this is like play outable. But if I played it out, I would probably just turn the treble down as a precaution because it is pretty sharp. That can come from over limiting though too. There's a common mistake is like you know, a lot of stuff has a lot of high end these days because we do so much stuff digitally. Like there used to be all this analog fall off naturally that kind of prevented things from going there. But now that we can make any sound we want, stuff gets harsh really quickly. So if you do leave it like that and then you bring up like the limiter, it can really like flatten that high end and kind of just put it in your face with no pause. So I think that what I would first do is turn off your master, turn off your limiter, and start looking at you know, this is a tip from Ahi, friend of mine. I watched him talk about this, and he does a lot of like EDM stuff, and he's really focuses on like separate bus compression. So like compression of not just the drum bus, but like compression of the kick and snare together, compression of the sub, and almost like layers of what needs to be the loudest in EDM. He does them individually, and that way by the time you get to the master, you're not really like slam limiting the whole thing. Like everything has been controlled and put in its place, and you're kind of just like final edge polishing. So I would look up like some Ahi tutorials, Ahee. I recommend him to everyone. Love him. He's a gem of a human, and he makes really good tutorials, and he talks a lot about that. So that's the only thing that yeah, you love him. So exactly, that's what I would do, is sort of bus compress things and really go back, because it's fire, but you don't have to limit it so hard if you leave a little bit of dynamic room, and that'll also make it push and pull even more and slap even harder. So yeah, I mean, Ray is saying he loved the mix. I like the mix too. Like I would play this out as is, but just control the highs a bit. But yeah, I mean, I could see it slapping even harder if you gave it some pullback. Tristan, what you think?
I can't really comment much because this is not a kind of track I listen to. All I can tell you is I went from huh to ooh to oh
That is
within
a
the
great
matter of about a
comment.
minute. One thing I will actually say, there was this vocal in it. It reminds me of the glow up meme, if anyone knows it, with Megamind in it. There's this one song that starts off with da da dum 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 da da dum 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 dum. The second half of the song is this one repeating vocal. It's like something on the dance floor, something on the dance floor. And I was like, ugh. That's kind of what that vocal is starting to get like. I don't think it's quite a problem yet, but that's kind of what it makes me think of.
Natty?
I mean, I feel like I am very old now, hearing that this is memes that I have no knowledge of.
Whoa. Oh,
Hold on, I
you've
gotcha.
ascended a generation, Natty. Watch out.
I've ascended a generation now.
Damn.
I guess I just post
so-
YouTube
okay,
links
that's,
and Twitch now.
Yeah.
But I mean, I thought there was a lot of swagger behind that track, and it was really cool, generally.
You sounded
I
like
kinda liked
90
some of the
years
harsh-
old. You're like, there was a lot of swagger and it was very cool. Okay, Grandpa.
I am
Anything
90
else?
years old inside. My soul is 90 years old.
Oh wait,
All
I
right.
sent the wrong
It's
one.
been 94 years.
Grandpa,
is
did
the
you
one.
tap
I've
your
been
feet to
waiting.
it? Did you go a hooting and a hollering? Paint the town
But
red?
wait, as far as the harshness of it, I think in some places it's actually quite satisfying. I wouldn't have it for the whole track, but maybe if you could recreate that effect deliberately in specific spots, it would be very, very cool to hear. So, you know, even just as sort of a fill dynamic where it's like boom, boom. Maybe not quite that exaggerated, but you know, that's sort of the contrast there where you get really gritty and harsh deliberately as part of your arrangement could be really interesting. So I mean, overall, just don't mix with your mastering chain turned on. I think that's always good advice.
Well, it depends. If you ask Frost, for instance, he would say, no, I always mix into a limiter. But I think, like, if you have a very, very confident mixing and mastering style, like, you get to a point where you can sort of anticipate. But I think that while you're still learning, like, I have a limiter there, but I turn it on and off, you know? I mix without it, and then I check it in the limiter every once in a while, because you really got to know your tools in order to mix into a limiter. Otherwise, it's usually fixable in the mix. XC Fusion says, I mix into a limiter at plus 6 dB. That could explain why your mixes are so dang loud, my friend. But yeah, Natty, how do you mix? Do you use a limiter at any point in the process, or what do you do?
I leave it off when I'm doing proper mixing, and I won't apply anything mastering until the mix is polished to the point where... Because, I mean, if you want to hear it louder and you've got nothing on your master... One, you could just turn the entire thing up a little bit, see what it sounds like. Or two, you can always just have a temporary thing. You just flick on and off occasionally just to see, okay, how does it sound once I crank it?
Nice.
So,
Because
mind if I give a suggestion?
that's always cool.
Please, go for it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Specifically on if you're on FL Studio, words are hard apparently. There's this thing called Wave Candy that you can throw onto your master, and there's a peaking thing that you can use that shows you exactly how many decibels sounds are, and you can mute individual elements of your track and see how high they go up. And another thing you can do is you can drag and drop an MP3 file from, say, another song, maybe the song you're referencing, and see how loud that song gets. And you can use that to base your track's volume, off of that, which helps a lot.
That's a cool suggestion. Wave Candy. Who makes that?
I don't know. It's a base kit for FL Studio.
Oh, okay.
That's why I said FL Studio. I've used it on.
So I've never used FL
I
Studio,
actually-
so I have no idea how that universe works.
I actually checked the leveling on the song that I sent in and figured out that everything except for the drums is pretty much mixed at -6 decibels.
Wow. Well, cool. Next up we have Exhale. Exhale this is
Yeah, their link was, I mean...
It's all good. I'm
working for
magic.
you.
I'm just good at things, you know. What can I say? Any comments on what they're looking for?
Mixing ideas and mixing and ideas and extending the song. The last couple bars are where my inspiration ran out, and then it ends.
All right.
I know that feeling well.
Let's check it out. I'm going to listen, and I'm going to grab a bowl of my soup, which means I'll really listen. Autoplay.
There's autoplay,
So
our
fun.
favorite friend.
Favorite friend. Well, that was.
Is there not a
abs-
setting to disable that?
You know, there is, and there is. I don't know, because I think I have disabled it if there is one, but I'm not sure. Well, anyways, I wanted that
Every
to
time
be.
you clear your cookies, it probably resets.
Yeah, something like that. Who knows? Oh, and I use Safari, so maybe I haven't set it up. I'm not even signed in. Yeah. So that could be it. No, I wanted that to be longer. I was just listening to that while I was in the kitchen, and I was like, "Oh, this is so nice." Like, I want to like get into the vibe more. I liked the texture. I'll let Natty talk a little bit more about it, but for me, it was like just finish it.
I know how to finish it too. Get your deep piano tones out. So it's like doon 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 doon, and then you get to where you've got so far, and then you just go boom, doon 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 boom.
Very insightful, Natty.
Boom, 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 boom. You know, it's like that's why it's a mellow track. You don't want to go too different when you progress it. But I mean, you've got all this space below the beat that you're not using up to so far. You know, start doing that, and then you know, maybe add some shakers or really subtle sort of high-end percussion that can go at a slightly more energetic pace. But if you make it so it's quiet and EQ around everything else a little bit, it won't be jutting out in your face. It'll just be adding this sort of in the background. Get a little bit experimental with some delays, some ping pongs, so you got things just drifting from side to side a little bit. Maybe a flanger or two, and some, you know, maybe add some fills that have some chorus on them, so it's sort of again, you know, washed out. Before then bringing it all back down into your beat and closing it out just by focusing entirely on the beat. I think that's what would finish this one off.
Kristen?
Sunny.
So I kind of had what you had in mind, which is adding something lower. If you played this guitar, I honestly think you can just pluck the hell out of like a really low string and just don't, and just let it
You
resonate.
could do wah 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 wah, or a wah filler. Wah, 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 wah.
Maybe something like that, yeah. Yeah, I don't think you necessarily need like a bass guitar, which is like really low. I think just adding that to that low end would help a lot. If you're using labs, which it actually kind of sounds like it, you can probably do the same thing. Just make sure you turn up the attack on the note. But otherwise, it sounds really good. I like it.
Amazing. Yeah.
I wanted it to finish, actually.
Everybody wanted it to
It's not good
finish.
until it's done.
Yeah. It's not
That's a
good at all.
Comment here as well from
It's not good at all
good
until
comment
it's
here
done.
from rocket powered tennis ball.
Okay.
Something I like on lo-fi stuff is samples with a high noise floor that have a short release envelope.
Okay. Whoa.
So it's like really not a sort of. Ooh, what happened there?
I don't know. You just like
I heard.
you just glitched out.
I think
That
it
was me
him.
muting myself because I'm about
Oh.
to step way above my notes.
Okay. Whoa. That's kind of.
Okay.
You should sample that. That's kind of dope.
It's like the pressure. You know when you come in an airplane, and you're landing and your ears pop.
Oh, it's kind of like it's kind of making me jump out of my skin, but I like it. All right. Glitchy Foley, people, just stream errors. We've got Freddie Z up next. What's up with Freddie?
Does it sound good? And do you enjoy it?
All right. All right, Freddie D in the house. This filter, this reverby filter that you have on these hats, gets pretty intense going throughout the track, and it's kind of taking over. Like, it's got that flangey hollowness, and it's like I don't want to focus on that, right? That should be an element that anchors you, and instead it's kind of like distracting me. I like that like kind of vintage Herbie Hancock sound that you're going on, but I do think that the bass really needs to be warmed up and richer, and there needs to be some sort of maybe some parallel compression on the drums so that they punch a little bit harder. But overall, I wanted it to warm up a lot more, but without getting muddy. So that's tricky. That's going to be EQing first, and then adding some like saturation or some other kinds of analog type of emulation, and then you're probably going to have to EQ it again after that. But don't be afraid to EQ more than once. Sometimes when I start teaching people, I see them get spooked by putting like more than one instance of a plugin. You know, they'll be like, "Oh no, I already put my EQ on over there," and it's like, okay, but then when you add distortion, you're adding harmonics, so sometimes you have to EQ it again. That's okay. We can have more than one EQ. But yeah, I think you got a good start going on, but it's just there's a lot of like sort of phasing and hollowness going on in the mix, and I think it's just that dominating filter. So I would just pull that in. What do you think, Natty? What did it sound like to you?
I mean, you need to decide what the busy element is, because your bass is doing a lot of interesting things, and then you're trying to do all these interesting lead melodies on top. So it's like your bass is going boom, ba-doom, boom, ba-doom, boom, 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 ba-doom, whatever it's doing, and then your lead is also going. It's all filling the same timing and space to the point where they're competing for attention. So I mean, I think that maybe for this track, have just a general rule of thumb as you're looking over the arrangement of, if my bass is busy, my lead has to be simple. If my lead is busy, I have to make my bass simpler. And you'll start finding it easier to sort of make gaps for yourself, so it doesn't sound like it's trying to do it all in one breath.
Good point. Yeah. Tristan, what do you think?
So this song makes me think of like, it makes me really want to think swing. It's not swing, but that's kind of what it makes me think of. But also French house, and a lot of characteristics that those kinds of tracks have is usually a bass guitar or some kind of bass that slides around a lot, very melodic like the one you have, and all the elements of the track are kind of following that one bass line. And it tends to work out really well. There was something that was EQ'd out. I can't remember what it was. But that's the intro of a lot of French house songs. They start off with something EQ'd out, usually a thin vocal, a female vocal with a lot of reverb on it and some effects and tweaking to it. And I think that might help out a lot. Another thing that you see a lot in those kinds of tracks is a really thin piano, EQ at the low end, and you have this really, as I said, thin piano. And trumpets a lot of the time you'll hear in those songs.
All good advice. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, it's definitely got that Power Stellar kind of feel to it. It's like very close to that electro swing corner.
Yeah, but it doesn't quite like ever drop into that, which is okay. It's like, but it makes you think that it's going to go there. And sometimes that can be powerful in itself too, like having people have expectations and then like just never satisfying them. That's another device. If you use it intentionally well enough, it can make people go crazy, so I appreciate it.
I appreciate it too.
I appreciate you, Natty. Thank you so much. I appreciate you, Tristan.
You too. I appreciate both.
I appreciate everybody.
We appreciate both of each other.
I appreciate all of you on Feedback and Friends right now on LBC TV. We hope to do more events soon. Right now, we're kind of just laying low a little bit because it's been a crazy year. We threw a lot of events. We threw 4 events in 4 different cities. And that was nuts by itself. We did it with an international crew. We did it with a lot of friends, a lot of help, and a lot of support. And we, especially from all of you, you're like the weekly crew, the OGs. So we appreciate you so much. We got next up, Torb M. Is that the artist name? What's the deal? I believe so. What's the deal with Torb M?
Just want to know if it's drop worthy. What does that mean?
Drop worthy?
Does that mean it's like release ready, or
man? I think
print it on a vinyl and drop it in the floor? drop
Okay.
it in the
I
trash.
I think
Yes.
the answer to that question is yes.
Yes.
Don't let go. I'm keeping your heart on hold. After it all, I know. Don't need a reason to start again. Don't let go. I'm keeping your heart on hold. After it all, I know. Don't need a reason to start again. I'm keeping your heart on hold. After it all, I know. Don't need a reason to start again. Don't let go. I'm keeping your heart on hold. After it all, I know. Don't need a reason to start again.
Oh, straight fire. I mean, the quality sometimes is just unbelievable what we get here. And I think you really, really nailed it. I mean, I listened to drum and bass for only drum and bass for a long time. I was obsessed. And, these days I'm just sort of getting back into it after being overdosed for years. But I love that kind of like deep, liquidy, but slightly edgy neuro kind of borderline thing that you've got going there. I think that vibe is magic, and as other people said in the chat, the drums are really, really fire. I do think that the neuro bass could be warmed up even just a little tiny smidge more if I'm just being super picky, and as others have said, the high end could be controlled a little bit better in some places. But I'm gonna let Tristan get in here. What do you think of that?
Well, I was gonna say a bunch of things, but you said it was really good, so now I'm afraid to say something that
No,
might
no,
make the track worse.
different different opinions, and also you're listening for different things. Go for it.
At the intro there, I wanted to hear like a really thick kick come in with the vocals. So when you had that build up, like a really, then the vocals came in, and it built up throughout the drops. You just had that one hit, then like an entire bar's worth of music, then another hit, like another change until you get up to the drop. I think that might be interesting. That's kind of what I wanted to hear there. As for the main drop, I almost want to say letting the sub keep playing while you keep the bass really plucky um, might add a little bit more in the layers of the track. I want to say, because I feel like you have that almost percussion-y sound that's hitting as well as the bass, and I feel like it might be getting lost a little bit. I'm not too sure on that one. I also want to hear some chorus on the vocals actually as it builds up. Like maybe there's a way to do it without just singing, because whenever I record vocals, I take a million different takes, compile the best few, and I throw them on top of each other. Um, Something like that where it builds up into that might add a lot to the vocals as well. It also went very unexpectedly into neuro, which I think was absolutely sick. What I think is because you have this transition between normal drop to neuro, you might be able to do some like glitchy sound effects. Not like a glitch genre, but I mean like something with maybe gross beat where it stutters and then goes into the neuro and then goes back into normal to like, I don't know, maybe something's going wrong with something that's playing this and it's being slowly corrupted by some kind of AI or something. I don't know. That's just kind of what I had in mind.
FL Studio is like the Quebec of DAWs. For any Canadians in the chat, Quebec is like this province in Canada where like they do their own thing. They have like their own certifications, and FL Studio just reminds me of that because it's just like set up so differently than the rest, and there's all these like proprietary tools. So I'm always just like, suddenly I feel like I know nothing when people start talking about FL. I'm like, now I recognize, I'm like, oh yeah, gross beat. Yeah, that's an FL thing. So I know what I don't know, but it's cool, and I'm not one of those people that hates on anything, because a lot of people whose productions I really love use FL. I just have like most DAWs I could get if I just sort of had them in front of me, but I think FL Studio would be a bit of a harder learning curve. So
I tried Studio One and Ableton, and I could not get behind them. So I bet it's mutual.
yeah, no, it's funny. Rebuza says that's a new take. Not really. I mean, FL Studio has ways that it's set up that are just different to, like I would say Cubase and Logic and one side of Ableton are all very similar in like the way that they're laid out and kind of options. And then FL Studio is just like, it's just different. It's just very different. And I think it's hard for people who don't use FL to use FL, and it's hard for people who use FL to use other things. But it's cool. I mean, there's some tools in there that I kind of want to have just on their own, but I think not all of them are available separately. So one of these days. Natty, did you have any thoughts?
I mean, I enjoyed that on the whole. I agree with some of the resonance comments. Made take a little bit of look on your EQ, but on the whole, I wouldn't really change the arrangement. I actually found it very enjoyable. So we're in conflict, Tristan.
Did you just get a cold in the last like 2 minutes? You just suddenly sound so congested, Natty. Are you okay?
I mean, I have been a bit congested for a little while. I'm all right.
No, it's just up until now you've been hiding it. You just sounded like your usual breathless self. ASMR Natty. Next up, we have some cool cyberpunk art on City Slickers. This track by Dazed. Do they have any specific notes, Natty, or what's up?
Anything notable? Mixing issues, mastering issues, complaints about how much I suck, etc.
Oh,
You don't suck.
no, and we don't like to complain here. No.
When the stars fade to dark, you feel alone. But the sky will speak in a tone you can't ignore.
Can't take us falling through, can't reach us. Cold out, we're sold out, but no now, can't slow down. No sound in this old house, and we know now, we can't slow down. Blind, trying to hide over my head, money, my head. We drive at night, one love, two lives. It's like there's no other way to catch a thrill. We parasite, mix work with pleasure. Please take my hand as we ride to oblivion. To the moon, can't sink us, falling doom can't reach us.
Oh, a nice little track from Dazed. I'm going to agree with chat again. I think that those reverse synths could come away a little bit every once in a while, make you want them. You know, I talk about this a lot. Like, you have to tease your audience. You have to make them crave something. And so in order to do that, you have to take it away from them. This is a very classic sort of bait device, but it works really well in music. So I would just have some more minimal parts, vary it up a bit, let it breathe so that people miss that wonderful part that you had before. And I also think that the drums they're a little bit stiff, you know, like they're very like grid-ish and controlled. And I think with drum and bass, like the track we heard before this really captured it. There has to be a certain wildness, a certain acousticness, a certain pocket. And that's why drum and bass uses sampled breaks so much. And if you try to make it without sampled breaks, you kind of get this no matter what, because so much of drum and bass is based on these like live drummers, you know, and capturing that energy and that groove and all the like imperfections of the analog recording. So I would like, you know, I hated this advice when people gave it to me, and that's part of like why I got soured on drum and bass. They were just like, oh, put an amen break on it. So I'm not going to tell you that, but I will say just play around with different sampled breaks, even to get you like inspiration of how to like swing your own breaks a little bit, so that it's a little more like raw, a little bit less proper. And that can also be the processing too. The processing could be a little bit dirtier, personally, I think, you know, as a drum and bass fan. But nice writing, nice idea. Tristan.
So this is definitely not what I expected when I saw the cyberpunk picture, because I watched Edge Runners recently. So, anyways, I seem to have the same conclusion that everyone else does. The distorty bit in the background does not need to be present all the time, but what I will say it fills up space really nicely. You could have it just play during the drops, and I think it would actually add a lot of livelihood to your drops. And as she said, make you really want to hear that sound. Something I've struggled with a lot of the time, because I started producing. Oh, it is based on Edge Runners? Yeah, it's not quite what I expected. When I saw the picture, I was like, that's not quite, but it's good. I'm not saying it's bad. Something I struggle with is drum variation. When I started producing off of drum and bass, and I only did through the entire song, and at the end there, you've got that different bass and the so yeah, they got the 1-3-1-3, which I think adds a lot. I think that's a good change that you made there. As for the actual drops themselves, I don't think I heard it. I want to hear like a crash or like a ride at the top going at the top there. It doesn't need to be loud, but I think it should be there. I also think some breakups on the drums would help a lot. I think what she was saying, like every 2 bars or repeat, yeah, like something like that would help a lot. Otherwise, that's all I got for you.
Nice one. Nah. Anyone else?
I felt there were a couple of sections where it was getting almost confused, where like you changed the drum pattern and it sort of felt syncopated, but in a way that didn't feel coherent with what was coming before it. And I mean, it's not necessarily that it was wrong, but maybe you need more obvious transitioning between those sections, so it doesn't feel like it comes out of nowhere when things switch up.
Very wise advice. Ooh, we got another regular incoming next. Hi Chi. I never know with Hi Chi what's gonna happen. Whether I'm being memed, whether it's gonna be the best thing I've ever heard. I mean, man, you always surprise me with quality stuff though. So I'm excited. Is there a comment on this one?
It was Mixington. Any feedback really? Bit of a weird chord progression, using some jazzy concepts, but might be too out there.
Okay, there, weirdo.
Mixing.
I don't think that this is too out there at all, dude. Like, I don't know. Like, if you think that's too out there, you have not listened to music lately. There's some weird stuff going on, but I really liked it. I do think, yeah, mix wise, certain sounds are kind of in the front that should be more in the back, like some of those mid range synths that were coming back at the end, along with the high buzzy stuff. I feel like the high stuff was in a good place, but maybe the mid range stuff could have been pulled back a little bit. And then I feel like there's like an interesting kind of mishmash of techniques going on where like you've got some like lo-fi sort of analog dirtier sounding parts like the drums, and then you have these really crisp digitally synths, and I think that they can fit together, but right now you need to like focus on doing more tricks to make them kind of be in the same space, because right now it's just like, oh, these sounds are from this track and these are from another one. It almost sounds like you're sort of mashing two things together, I think, just because of how, another way for me to say it would be like some stuff sounds really old and some stuff sounds really new. And I don't want to be noticing that. I want it to kind of just seamlessly fit. So, I mean, there's all kinds of tricks to do this, but I'll let the others weigh in and see what they think. Tristan.
So I really like the chord progression you've got. A lot of the times people will stick with a major chord to start off with and a major chord to end with. And you actually, by the sound of it, went into some kind of diminished chord as your second chord and then stuck to the same minorish chord the second time around. I was going to mention that you might want to try jumping up to a major chord instead of that diminished chord every now and then, but you actually kind of did that near the end. A lot of the blippy blips in the high end feel a little strange with the drum line you had near the middle there. I couldn't quite say what you want to do to fix that. I just noticed I suddenly remembered that there were drums, started paying attention to the drums, and was like, it sounds a little funny. And I also think it would be interesting if you leaned into you had it on the SoundCloud waveform where it starts going quieter. There's like whoa, it's kind of vocal thing that you see in a lot of these like tracks with astronauts in them. I think you might be able to lean into that a little bit more, and that might bring a little bit more interest to your song. Sorry, I talk with my hands.
Me too. Don't worry. You're not the only one. Natty?
I mean, one way to help things fit together is to start sidechaining things to other things. Like those bleeps and bloops, sidechain your upper percussion to them so they're ducking around each other. It's not just a mixing tool. You can use it for arrangement too.
Yes, absolutely.
On the whole, I like the vibe though. It was fun.
Oh my God. So before we go up next, I just want to talk a little bit about music news, right? So there's a couple of things that are notable, I suppose. And one of them would be, I was wondering if anyone else has tried the new Ableton yet, because the new Ableton that's for mobile phone, because I noticed that has come out, and I was just kind of like, wow, I wonder how that works. So that's news. Maybe just bring this up, new Ableton mobile, and go into screen share. Yeah, so it's called Note, and it's $5.99. So I would be really interested to see if anybody has tried this and how much you can actually do. So
I don't have an iPhone,
sadly, but yeah, I mean, they always kind of do that. And just from working behind the scenes, I think you and I both know, Nathaniel, it's much harder to deal with audio stuff for Android for some reason. iOS it's kind of been historically like that. I mean, that used to be the OG reason that people spent way too much on Mac computers, because for a time when they first came out, they just dealt much better with audio, and they still kind of do on a certain level. You'll notice that you don't have to install drivers for a lot of stuff on Mac while you do on PC. And this is not going to turn into a Mac versus PC war, I promise. There's advantages to both, namely with PCs, you can build a beast for way cheaper. But getting audio into apps is harder to do for Android. So hopefully if somebody can try it, I would love to know. Next thing, Audius, one of our favorites, one of our friends, has bought a company which is actually run by another one of my friends. Whoops, that is not Audius. Who is Audius to Twitter? Audius Project. Oh, I bet they really wanted it. That guy. All right, so
They
basically
probably tried to negotiate.
Yeah, and he was like, $10,000. Nope, we're not playing your game. So yeah, soundstage.fm. This is my friend's company. He's been working on it for years. So I would definitely suggest checking it out now, because what they have done is they have bought his technology to integrate into the platform. It is a virtual music performance platform. It's a little bit metaversey, but it's not intended to be a metaverse, right? It's actually just intended to be a venue where you as an artist can digitally perform, and you can invite your friends and they can come, and it's like they're in this virtual club and they can go closer, further away. They can interact with not avatars like the metaverse, but actually each other's webcams. So check out. Actually, I just realized I have to open this in Safari, or the audio won't come through because of the way I have it routed. So let me just open this video, because I just want to show you a bit about how it works. It's pretty cool. Mm, mm. So yeah, basically, that was some bad audio cutting at the end. I gotta call out Audius on that. You could have just faded it out. You didn't need to give me that last sting. Anyways, cool video though, and it shows you like it's a fully spatialized, interactive virtual venue. And if you're doing like digital art, you can hang your digital art on the walls at your venue in the original. I'm not sure how the Audius is going to integrate that, but basically, if you're a bronze tier Audius member, you can host your own like VIP release parties, and you can even DJ straight off of Audius. So that's cool. Have you heard any music news worth talking about, Natty?
I mean, TikTok has apparently announced a STEM, like unreleased STEM mixing DJ contesty app thing that they're collaborating with. Who was it? Someone that one of the other app
Drop.
developer. Yeah.
I haven't
They're
even heard
partnering
this.
with X Factor dude Simon Cowell because of course they are.
Led by Max Martin.
Competition.
Led by Max Martin, the Swedish guy who writes every pop song.
But
no
yeah,
shade.
somebody was building an app as well. I can't remember who it was. Samsung was apparently building an app to help make it easier for people to do stuff with these stems. I'm not sure.
Everyone
entirely
is
how
doing
extensive it'll
stems
be.
because the other news is Serato. I mean, this isn't like brand new. This has been in the last few weeks, but Serato released their stems technology where you can basically just on the fly make stems. It's just audio separation, but apparently it's very good. I haven't tried it out yet, but now TikTok is doing custom versions of music, and this is crazy because I was actually just talking about this when we were talking about Jam Pro, about like, it would be cool if you could get Jam to like jam out loops that fit on your TikTok videos, and this is kind of like them doing their own take on this. Interesting. And can you access this yet, Natty, or is it like just upcoming?
I don't believe so. I think it's just an announcement that they're working on it.
Wow, crazy. All right. Well, if there's any music news that you want to talk about as well, just let us know and we will chat. We're gonna move on to Abstract Type. What's the deal on this track?
It's it's mostly done. It doesn't. The problem is the comment doesn't make sense now without the context of the sets, because rather than saying it's one song, Abstract Type sent it's like 7. But I fixed it now. This is track number 2 in that playlist. I think it's must be building. They must be building an album of some kind.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
General feedback, I guess.
Cool. Let's check it out. there's some really cool sounds in here, but this kind of to me sounds like a recording of a live modular jam, which is super fun. But at the same time, like for listenability at home, I want to hear a little bit more polished. Whoa, where did my sound just go? Uh-oh. The sound has just disappeared from me. Can y'all still hear it?
Am I still coming through? Hello?
I can't hear it.
I can hear you.
I can hear both
I can
of you.
hear you.
Anyone
You're
on the
fine.
stream can tell me. Yeah, I can see it happening. I've just completely lost audio. Yeah, I can see that you all can hear them, but I can't hear them anymore. And I can't hear my own music anymore either, which is a problem.
Wow.
Wow.
This is weird.
All right, why don't you all, since everyone else can hear you, why don't you all talk, and I'm gonna keep fixing this on my end while you all talk, and just, don't say anything mean about me because I can't hear you.
Aisha, you suck. Yeah. Tristan, let's see
actually-
what you.
The beginning sounded like an intro to a game. I've seen some really cool intros where something started off with a game and went into like an 8-bit remix of, or 8-bit like Complexo song. Obviously, this is not going that way. That's just what I got off the intro. I've also never really heard 1, 2, 3 kick pattern like or like a 3. It's not something I've seen before, and you seem to be using it as a bass. I don't know what to make of that because I've never thought of using a kick as just a straight up bass. I've always layered kicks with basses. But it's interesting for that, that's for sure. The entire track feels very samey. There's not much change going along to it. If that's what you're wanting, I suggest rocking on with that. I could 100% fall asleep to this. If you didn't see, I was yawning a few times there. I was like drifting off slightly there. But that's about all I got for this.
Okay.
I mean, are you working now?
No, so check this out. Weirdest loopback glitch ever. I can no longer get any sound through my audio interface, but I can route everything to my MacBook speakers. So I'm going to have to do the rest of feedback telling you how your stuff sounds coming out of my MacBook speakers.
Oh,
But you know what? That's
I guess
cool
referencing.
because, yeah, referencing. But it's really ridiculous. But hey, workarounds are workarounds. So this is, those who know me know that my specialty is adapting to this shit. Anyways, sorry, go on, Nathaniel.
Voice meet a banana can be whack like that.
Well, Tristan was talking about how the kick basically fills in the niche of the bass as well. And I think in order to do that effectively, you need to pitch your kick and automate that. It's something that Trap does when they basically use the 808 bass as everything below 200 hertz. It's just the 808 and nothing else. There's no extra kick, there's no separate bass sound, it's just big 808. And I think that maybe if you're going to do something like that, pitch your kick so it changes in where you would expect a bass to be. But also I still feel like it could do with just a general bass sound somewhere along the way, whether it's just a round stabby bass, it's like boom 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 ba-dum, ba-dum, ba-dum. Or a more Reese type bass, sort of going down more into that sub range where it's just sort of like whoa, 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 whoa. Just anything to ramp up the tension, because I think that's what you're going for. It's like, it's maybe a peaceful track, but it's still got a lot of inherent tension in it, but your sound design isn't quite reflecting that.
What made you think Grease bass of all things?
Because you can basically time modulate it to the same space that's left over from the kick, so you can keep the kick going at the same time.
All right. I was like, I wouldn't have thought to put a
reason
Reese in there, which is why I'm asking.
Because the kick is operating at a different time signature. It means that the general standard modulation of a Reese will actually just completely avoid it, which will actually be easier to mix and also sound kind of cool. Because then you get a syncopation of wave and kick.
You always have the most unique ideas.
It's fun.
Well, I'll add one
do
more.
Crazy stuff.
Yeah, one more comment is just that Yeah, it sounds decent on my MacBook Pro speakers. It sounds pretty similar.
They are pretty good speakers, though.
I mean, it's a new one, so they're state of the art MacBook Pro speakers. It's just, I prefer like my headphones or my studio monitors or like the 3 or 4 other high quality ways I have to listen. But Loopback has just decided to shut off the driver. Anyways, good work. Good luck with this production. I think it could be super mesmerizing. It just needs a little bit more ear candy. You're right.
Hold on.
Whoever said in the chat it needs a sound effect.
I'm gonna play that. I'm gonna play that every time we hear ear candy.
Hey, not bad. I don't mind this. All right, next up, I'm gonna move quickly because I know we got a few left still. So next up we have No Cash. Is there any specific feedback requests, Nathaniel, for this?
Any feedback on my vocals would be appreciated. I am very insecure about my voice and would like to know what people think of it. Maybe some feedback on the melodies too.
Why do you sound so like dark and stormy night? Like, are you telling us a ghost story, or are you announcing like what are you trying to do?
Dark
here?
and stormy night. We're coming up for Halloween. So
Oh, it's true. That's my birthday.
Bumber biff bean.
Maybe
Berber
we'll
bing
do-
berbers.
All right.
Prison on my mind's high. Hey, hey, you got me feeling locked down, even though you will not let it go. I don't give a fuck, and I'm fucked up now. I don't give a fuck, you don't gotta know how, bitch. No, keep me up the flow, keep on acting like a cat. Dream till I can't, it's a sinister fate. Oh yeah, I'm resilient to the change. Hanging from my chains that invaded this bed. Sitting in the front, keep on rolling, rolling. Turning off my phone when I see you calling. Half a ball later, how she got me thinking. Take a couple drugs and it's back to forget it. And even though you had to let me go, I wish that you could stay. I wish that you could stay home. Sorry, no way, can't have you stay. Broke you again, foresee no rain. Sit tight, no shake, I'll be away. Yeah, I can't tell, see you in here. Keep me up the flow, keep on acting like a cat. Dream till I can't, it's a sinister fate. I'm resilient to the change. Hanging from my chains that invaded this bed. Sitting in the front, keep on rolling, rolling. Turning off my phone when I see you calling. Half a ball later, how she got me thinking.
Very nice track from No Cash, who wants to clarify that they're the singer. This is not really an instrumental feedback, and I mean everyone said it's on point. It's obviously been professionally mixed, and so I think with the vocals that is my main feedback. Actually, is they are a bit ahead sometimes. I think that there are moments where you hit it perfectly, and there's a couple moments where, as a producer, I would be a bit pickier. And I think you're still in the pocket, but you're just like a little bit ahead of the beat sometimes. So if you just shift, like, I'm talking like 10 to 30 milliseconds, like really small shifts, if you just shift it a little bit later, it's in certain points, in certain phrases. And I think if you like really like sit there and listen deep a few times, those parts will start to stand out to you. Because the thing is, the parts where you're dead on are really, really good. And then when I hear like a phrase that's a little bit ahead, it like jolts me out of my trance a little bit, which I don't want to, because really nice atmosphere, really nice writing and everything. So good singing. The vocal processing, well, as y'all know, I'm now listening to this out of my MacBook Pro speakers. Sounds great over here. I mean, but it's also hard for me to tell because I'm also trying not to listen too loud so I don't feed back into my mic. Uh, so I'll let others comment on the mix and everything, or the vocal production. Natty, you want to go first?
I mean, on the whole, I think everything sits relatively nicely. I don't know. It's hard to tell whether I'm happy with it as it is, though. It's like I feel like something's missing. It might just be as simple as maybe you need some vocal harmonies in places, just to help spice it up a little bit more. Because right now it's very reliant on the sort of more auto-tune effect, which is cool. But like I feel like you could do with just singing some harmonies of yourself to sort of really add more of yourself into it, as it were, and it'll emphasize your humanity rather than the processing.
Yeah, sounds good.
But I mean, obviously I can't really comment on the instrumental too much because it sounds good, I think, on the whole. But I mean, Tristan, do you think it sounds like they're two parts of the same thing and not just one thing slapped on top of another thing?
I th- I think they kind of mesh together really well because you've got the lower vocal and you've got the main vocal. So you've got do 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 do, and then you got this like higher tone. It sounds like it's either doubled or one of the vocals is dropped an octave down. And I was hearing some higher end stuff as well. I mean, what I think you could probably do is, especially in the latter half of the draw, you could try and introduce some vocals that are sitting up higher in pitch and don't follow the main vocals. So you got da 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 do do da 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 do, and maybe if you had a vocal that's a do do do, but like an octave up, might mesh really well with that, even if it doesn't match exactly what it says. I've done that a few times. If you're worried about staying on pitch or on time, I mean, how I record my vocals, I lower the volume of everything, have my microphone. It's got a little jack in the that and that helps me stay on beat. And a lot of times I'll either be tapping my leg or tapping my foot, keeping to the beat, or doing hand gestures, or you've seen me bob my head. So that can help a lot.
That's interesting, because I find I cannot play to a metronome or sing to a metronome.
Really?
I've always sung in a choir, so I'm used to watching someone stand in front of me and kind of direct. So
Oh, something
hand
silent
gestures
like
feel
that,
like a
but
lot
I
of times
find the
I'll
actual
just stand
sound of the
like this as
metronome
I'm singing.
annoying and distracting.
Huh. Yeah, I mean, I do too, but like sometimes you just kind of have to be able to. But I don't know. Sometimes I'll put a shaker in, like a temporary shaker, just to sing to instead of a.
It
click
has to be a
track.
really subtle sound, or I can do it weirdly to a kick, where it's sort of a thumpy kick. I can do that and get in groove that way, but I cannot do it to a metronome specifically. It's just the wrong sound.
Huh.
what I can't do is I can't play piano to a metronome, but I'm not as good with piano as I am with singing. Not quality wise, I'm just kind of good at keeping on pitch and on tune or whatever. Because choir, I have to sing an entire voice line that's my own voice line, keep in pitch, and I've sung a lot of a cappella pieces with other groups, like in a quartet. So I'm the only person singing my voice part, and I'm singing something very different from everyone else. Like in pentatonics, we sung a few pentatonic songs as well. Hallelujah, Mary, did you know?
That's awesome.
Um,
I would love to hear that because I love choirs. I think choirs are great training to like, play well with others and to pay attention to almost like frequency. It's like acoustic EQing, where you voice those separate voice parts. Super cool.
Unfortunately, I graduated from high school, so the choir I used to be in, I am no longer in high school, or I don't have access to that choir anymore. Though I do plan to volunteer and help out with their new class.
Oh, well,
That's
congratulations
nice of you.
on graduating.
Also, no cash. The voice is indeed listenable. Don't worry.
It's very listenable.
Don't be insecure.
All right, we're gonna move through. We got catalysis. Any comments? I hope this isn't Britney Spears. It's gonna get us taken down.
I shared this last time as a work in progress. Now it's a final piece and would like overall thoughts. Main challenge was getting the echoey drums to sound clear and epic. Did it work?
All right. This track is vibes, but this part is getting a little samey for me. A little bit repetitive. I think you've got us in a really, really nice place, but we need a little something else to happen. Just a little something. It could even be just minimizing the synths, right? Taking it down. I just think it needs to have a different dynamic, but I do like the overall vibe. It's really light. It's really floaty, and on my MacBook Pro, it's bumping. That's all I can say. Tristan?
So I noticed you added some sweeps to your song. I really wish I remember what it sounded like last week, because I'm really afraid of contradicting myself on any advice I give or repeating myself and sounding like a broken record. What I can say is the piano still sounds a little bit same as she said. Have you tried the second time you had that piano arpeggio come in? Because you had the do 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 do, and then you had a do 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 do. After that, when it goes to the do do do, you could probably try like a chord like kind of like maybe syncopated on 1 and 3, using all the notes you used in that arpeggio and just really rolling them up. I think that might really be interesting and might add to the track. Also, when you had the vocal start stuttering a lot, what I thought you might be able to do and bring more interest is actually just chop the heck out of those vocals. Those are already vocal chops. But I'm talking throw those samples into MIDI and start making a melody out of those vocals, pitch them, affect them, and make an entire melody just out of vocal chops. I think that might be an interesting idea for you.
Very interesting. Natty?
I mean, yeah, you could go more minimal. I mean, it's either that you open it out and give us more pads and a more exaggerated art profile for the climax. It's or you just simply make the track a little bit shorter. That
That's
not every track needs to be 5 minutes long.
That's true. I mean, this is only
And
2 minutes and 58, but I think it was like at 2 minutes, it was very satisfying. And then after that, it was like, okay, the last bit needs to do something different. But
Something I just thought of that might be interesting. You had that do 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 do. What if you ended the song or brought it to a close by slowing down the tempo, like the intro could or the outro could go do 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 do, like a trilling, like a stutter effect as it just ends.
right, like slowing down and glitching kind of thing. That'd be cool.
Yeah,
Very interesting idea.
yeah, that could work.
or you could use that for a transition as well if you wanted to bring the song into like a completely different direction in the second half or something.
Cool. I like all these.
Yes.
All these are great ideas. Good feedback. So nice to have you. So now we have, is it Maxon? And what's the vibe on what's Maxon up to?
They didn't ask for anything specific.
Okay, so just general feedback. We can do
Just
that too.
general feedback, I guess.
All right, so let's go Maxon. I like what you're doing with these chords a lot. I like this part. I think your sound design definitely could use a little bit of finessing, but your vibe is there, and the way that you're building tension is good, and this energy here is good. I just think the sounds themselves could use a little bit more sculpting. And same advice I gave to the person earlier, listen to some really good presets and try and reverse engineer the things you like about them. Create a little bit more movement and a little bit more texture in your song, because you have what they call good bones. You just need, like, you have a really good groove, but something about your synths could groove a little bit more. So watch the envelopes, watch different ways to modulate effects that create like sub rhythms or polyrhythms. Like, you can do really interesting things with synthesis. So yeah, anyone else want to go? Tristan?
So, from the intro and really throughout the song, I instantly think of either Tron or, interestingly enough, Lady Gaga Poker Face is what comes to mind when I heard the intro of this song. As for the intro, you've got this really kind of background pluck, do 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 do, something like that, and then you've got this really buzzy synth that seems to come out of nowhere. What I think you might be able to do with that is some a cutoff envelope, and just bring that in slowly, so you hear like a wisp of it in the intro, and you bring it up until that point, so it doesn't just kind of slam you in the face the moment it comes in. I also think that you go a little too long without drums, but what you could do to get a little bit more progression out of it is EQ some drums in. So have a kick snare like you have in the drop, EQ it so only the low end of the kick is there and the low end of the snare, so you have this really muted pattern, and just let it just open up. And once you get to the drop, you can have that percussion come in and maybe some hi-hats or some rides to really build some energy. I think that would work out a lot there. The actual sounds themselves, I also think, could use a lot of automation as well. They sound pretty much the same throughout the entire song. So doing something to modulate those synths, replacing them with different synths, or changing up the melody. You have a very staccato melody. What if you turned it into a more legato parts at some time? Maybe that would help a lot. Otherwise, it's got a really nostalgic feel to it. Like, it reminds me of some older songs, is what it does.
Natty?
Sorry. Turn down your kick. It's too loud. Dominating everything.
It's too loud. Turn down
It's
your
too
kick.
loud.
It's too loud.
Too loud.
Too loud.
Turn Scottish.
My name is Braveheart, and this is too loud.
You're not my son.
Sorry.
That's literally...
Sorry.
Get out my swamp.
Oh, wait. So next we got somebody who claims to be different than everyone else, and who goes by Clowns in Hollow Weird, which is giving me a little bit of the prickles. I know it's almost Halloween, but I'm scared. Do I need to be scared? They're saying like it's massively different.
There's a balloon beside a sewer grating outside your house.
No. Don't bring up that one.
It's
Listen,
not something you want to mess with.
my birthday's on
Ba-dum.
Halloween. It's in Halloween. And I love scary movies, but I'm also like the biggest jump scare. As you've seen, I've already been jump scared at least twice tonight by loud mix downs. So you can imagine at horror movies, I'm just like, hey. All right, Clowns in Hollow Weird.
There's a scary movie with Ghostface in it.
Hunger Till I Die.
And their comment was, "Is this a banger? And what do you think? I worked with an engineer for this one, and I played everything."
Cool.
I'm nothing more than what I am. Nothing more, nothing more. It's only me.
my freedom.
Definitely different than what we hear, but you know what? We have heard everything on this show. We've heard like Disney singing, we've heard a cappella, like you name it. We're feedback of friends, and we like having friends in all genres. So I used to listen to this kind of music a lot when I was in high school. It's just I discovered drum and bass and felt like I could get more savage with an expanded palette, you know, outside of the guitar. But I still appreciate that, like the rawness of this type of music. And I think, yeah, generally it's pretty well produced and well mixed. If I were nitpicking anything, I would say that similar to comments I've given out tonight, there are moments where you're a little bit out of the pocket vocally, where as an engineer, I would have just shifted you a little bit forward, because most of the time you're in that pocket. So just in the perfection. But I mean, that's my style of producing, and it's maybe a personal thing. But on my MacBook Pro, which I am reduced to listening to till the end of the show until I can figure out my loopback issues, sounds balanced, it sounds good, and you can hear all the elements. So how does it sound to people on real speakers, Natty?
I wouldn't say I call my headphones real speakers, but I mean, I think for me, it still sounds ever so slightly dry, just in places. I felt like it could have been a little bit more, just slight gain on the reverb, but also maybe up your bass frequencies ever so slightly. Like I just wanted to slam ever so slightly more than it's doing, and maybe that could be done with something as simple as just a parallel compression on a bus kind of thing. But yeah, it's just like it's very, very, very close, and I think the general sense of space and the levels are all great. It's just not quite punchy enough to be really competitive yet, but it's very close, and it's a good vibe.
Nice. Tristan?
Sounds epic. I love it. Good drums, good progression, nice vocal, subtle harmonies. Like, I think you can barely hear them. I think I'm hearing them. I might even be imagining them. But I swear I hear some kind of like vocal undertone below the main voice, especially near the beginning, where you have this really like whispery vocal going along with the main one. I thought that was a really nice touch. And you said you were working with an engineer on this one? I did hear that? Okay. So yeah, that was a really good touch. You said you were working with an engineer on this one, and that is very evidenced by the sound of it. The only thing I want to hear probably is a little bit more grit on that main vocal as the song progresses. Like, you got like a, wanna cry, something like that, you know? Right now it sounds very clean, but you could probably mix it in with a little bit more grit on the main vocal. The background vocals have a little bit more of that, but the main vocal, I want to hear it too.
A lot of that's performance, like, you know, you have to abuse the proximity effect, and, you know, you actually have to sing it conversely a little quieter and get a little bit closer, and then you can scream, but you're not really screaming, but it's capturing the lower end of your voice in a little bit more resonant manner, so you're getting the scratchiness a little bit more.
Yeah, and you've got that scratchiness introducing all these all these different what was I going to say? Like frequencies in your voice, or harmonics. You're adding more harmonics to your voice by making it more screechy like that, and it adds a lot to a vocal performance, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Cool. Yeah, thanks for giving us something different. I always enjoy this. We got one last one, I guess, up, Rune Dweller. And yeah, do they have any specific feedback requests?
Song structure is a big question mark for me.
Song structure. Okay, so arrangement, song structure is the thing where like there is a formula, but there's also an anti-formula. So let's check it out. my gosh, what an
No, that was it.
amazing way to finish off a stream. There's been some great pieces today, but that, wow. I mean, this is not my usual style. I loved that. I love the feeling I got from that. I love the way that it changed subtly, but it remained really clean, and it just had so much soul to it, even though it was like really steady at the same time. So, yeah, I'm a big fan, Rune Dweller. You got me. Love it. Tristan?
I actually want to know what you did to achieve that chord. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. I've done that in songs, and it tends to make things stick out really weirdly because essentially you're shifting the key of the chords you're doing, but you actually had other sounds that stayed on key, and it actually worked really well. What did you do to do that? And while I'm waiting for you to respond, I'm going to continue on with the rest of what I'm doing, what I want to say. I love the transition from the legato pulsing effect you had to very staccato, choppy plucks. Um, from the drop, you had that build up, and then you had the drop, and it separated the two and made the drop feel so much bigger, despite it actually having less in it. It felt really good to listen to that. I also kind of want to hear some harmonies in the bass, interestingly enough. I've been experimenting a little bit with trying to harmonize basses instead of having, say, a sub bass sit directly below the main bass, and I find it has some really interesting effects. So you might want to try messing around with that and maybe see if you can do something with the chords like that. I think that would be really interesting. I also really like the breakdown with the piano and the pad. Um, I almost want to say you want to remove the plucky pad. You do push it into the background, which is nice, but there's a problem with certain sounds where they're always omnipresent. And if you plan to extend that song longer, maybe having a sweep down or something for the piano section, and then for the transition back into plucky pads, you hear a really quiet. You have like this swell, and then it sits back down and continues on with the same chord. I think that would be an interesting way to transition to that and break up your song nicely.
Cool. Natty?
That's good feedback.
It is.
And on the whole, I think as far as structure goes, this track makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's conventional. I think we can safely call it that, but it's enjoyable. So I mean, you've successfully applied all the conventions. Like when you have your clap and you use a separate percussive snap to create a syncopated rhythm. That's quite a. I mean, I've heard a lot of songs in this kind of space that just use the clap again with like an echo or a reverb or a delay of some kind. So it's like boom, like. But you doing it here with a different type of percussion and have it more spread out in the stereo field is actually quite interesting, and taking a conventional device and using it slightly differently. So that's really cool. I also agree with generally there was a lot of interesting variation across the track, so it kept itself fairly fresh. Although you could have maybe applied the same ethos to your vocal chops. I think that would be something I would recommend doing.
Very wise advice, everyone. Well, this has been a really excellent day/night. I hope wherever you are in the world that you've enjoyed hanging out with us as much as we enjoy hanging out with you. Any last words? Sunny Skies, thank you for being here. Anything you want to tell people about what's coming up for you or what's next?
Well, I mentioned bass harmonies, and a lot of songs I'm working with are now including that a lot more. I'd say the big project I'm working on right now, though, is I'm a big fan of trying out different genres. I started in drum and bass, moved to liquid drum and bass. Then I tried to move into Complextro, and I literally did that on my phone. I pulled up the FL Studio mobile app where I tried to make Complextro, and this was 2 years ago, so bear with me. That's about the intro of what I've got. It's rough, is what it is. I then transitioned, I think, into different kinds of house tunes. I think a lot of progressive and melodic house is what I did, and then eventually moved into dubstep and then melodic dubstep once I figured out the difference between the two, which you would think color bass is melodic dubstep. It's a whole weird mishmash of different genres. Anyways, what I'm working on right now is a psytrance song, actually. And I'm currently drawing a animated background for it. So I'm gonna pay an animator to do it. Right now, it's actually finished. It's just a 4-frame GIF right now, and I'm going to turn it into a full-on song. I might turn that in next week. Actually, what I've got of the Psytrance song so far. Actually,
Wicked. Well, we
what I
can't.
am looking for is some trumpet hits if anyone has them, like a foghorn or something. You hear that a lot in Psytrance, and I can't find any good samples of that.
All right, save your foghorn samples for sunny skies. For me, I'm going to be retreating in the studio a bit, but I also got some family stuff I got to take care of. So I'm happy y'all dropped by because Nathaniel's going to have to hold down the fort again for the next couple of weeks while I go up to Canada and just take care of some stuff. And I don't know, how my service would be, so I'm not gonna try. I'm just gonna focus on my family, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks. And Natty, I'm sure you're looking for guests and people to co-host and
Yep.
whatnot. Anything else you
I
want to
mean,
say?
next week, I mean, I will have to keep an eye on this, but next week I may have to shift the start time a little bit.
That's fine.
I've got other commitments as well popping up, but I will let everyone know as and when I know for certain, because my life is weird and not everything happens in a predictable manner anymore.
Hey, welcome to freelance life, Natty. Woo! Amazing. Well, you know what it's time for. Good night.